Good afternoon to all of you in Europe and Africa. Good morning to everybody joining from Central America, from South America, from the US, and a very good evening to everybody joining from Asia. My name is Koenraad Krijger, Director of IUCN Netherlands, and on behalf of IUCN Netherlands, a very warm welcome to this 20-year anniversary of the Land Acquisition Fund. And what a milestone it is, 20 years of continued support for local initiatives to save threatened species and ecosystems. We're broadcasting live here from Amsterdam, from the wonderful Hortus Botanicus, IUCN member, in this wonderful greenhouse. Thank you so much, Hortus, for this wonderful opportunity and for opening up especially for this occasion. We will celebrate this 20-year anniversary in a very special way. We will take you on a 90-minute journey around the world. And we will show you inspiring, hopeful stories from local conservation heroes. We will learn how the tapir was introduced in an area it was gone extinct. And we will know how, in the midst of conflict, the elusive Persian leopard is still protected. And we will find out how safe passages were created for India's gentle giants. IUCN Netherlands is proud as to be the initiator and the motor of this land acquisition fund. It's an important part of our work, of our mission, of our vision. That is to support local nature organizations everywhere in the world, including the Netherlands. And as part of IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, we work together with these local organizations and we build strong networks to safeguard nature. It's our conviction that saving biodiversity can go hand in hand with human well-being. Before we start this journey, let me take you back 20 years ago to the start of the Land Acquisition Fund in the year 2000. IUCN Netherlands was already working then with local nature organizations, and the idea was born to do something special to support land purchase to save threatened species. And the former director of IUCN Netherlands, Willem Verweda, who's among us today, hi Willem, pitched this idea to the Dutch Postcode Lottery, and they liked it, and IUCN Netherlands became a beneficiary, and our dream came true. The Dutch Postcode Lottery has been, since 2000, a highly committed donor, and I would say partner. It made it possible for us to invest close to 10 million euros in land acquisition to save species. We're also very grateful to a growing number of private donors that support the Land Acquisition Fund and that make it possible to award additional projects. If we look at the success of the Land Acquisition Fund, and you will see some of the highlights today, it's clear that it's the work of many. And first and foremost, it's the local nature organizations. They are the ones that make the impact. Those are the ones that save the species and the ecosystems. Second, very important, our international advisory board, also present among ours today, and we'll see some of them in our journey. And last but not least, the IUCN Netherlands team, who has been led by Mark Hogeslag since the early beginning. Also now, after 20 years, the Land Acquisition Fund is still highly relevant in this world. We see it from the more than 100 applications we receive each year, of which we can only fund very few. And let us be honest, especially in these times, we are all very much aware of the bare truth that we need to take care of our biodiversity, we need to conserve natural ecosystems. If not for us, Let us do it for the millions of wonderful and fascinating species we share this planet with all over the world. Let me introduce our host for this journey of today, Mr. Arjen Dwarshuis. He is the ambassador of our Land Acquisition Fund since this year. He is the world record holder birdwatching with close to 7,000 species in 1 year. And he has visited many of the biodiversity hotspots around the world, including sites supported by the Land Acquisition Fund. And this, with his love for local nature conservation and for people, makes him the best ambassador for us for the Land Acquisition Fund. With this, I welcome you to our celebration again, and I hand over to Arjan, our host. Please.
Well, thank you, Koenraad, for this fantastic introduction. Koenraad will now head off into the forest of the Hortus botanicus. Well, as Koenraad already mentioned, since the 1st of August, I can proudly call myself the ambassador of the iucn.nl Land Acquisition Fund. And during my travels, I witnessed with my own eyes how effective land acquisition can be. I visited some of the most threatened ecosystems. I saw with my own eyes how working with local communities can counteract extinction. I actually encountered, without realizing it at the time, I actually encountered some of the rarest and most unique bird species during my big year in the very reserves that are supported by the Land Acquisition Fund. So I'm, again, very proud to be the ambassador of this fund. So without further ado, I would like to kick off this amazing event with a short video. Enjoy.
Meet the cotton-top tamarin. This squirrel-sized monkey occurs only here, in the tropical forests of northern Colombia. Sadly, the titi, as Colombians call it, is one of the most endangered primate species in the world. It finds its refuge and food at the highest treetops of the forest. But extensive deforestation has reduced and fragmented its habitat. As forest fragments become isolated, it gets harder and harder for the tamarin to find resources, and thus to survive. Habitat fragmentation puts pressure on the survival of many species worldwide. Luckily, there is a solution at hand. By securing core habitats and creating corridors between isolated forests, you can protect and connect the habitats of endangered species. This is why the iucn.nl Land Acquisition Fund provides grants to local NGOs across the globe. With these grants, they can strategically acquire threatened patches of nature to protect and connect wildlife habitats. The Colombian NGO Fundación Proyecto Titi, for example, could acquire an important 70 hectares forest fragment to create a protected area that's crucial for the survival of the cotton-top tamarin. Since its foundation in 2001, the Land Acquisition Fund has supported more than 100 committed local NGOs to pursue their conservation dreams. The fund supported 135 projects in 36 countries and enabled the acquisition of over 42,000 hectares of nature, from Nicaragua to Indonesia and from Iraq to Argentina. This way, the fund significantly helped increase the chances of survival of the blue-throated macaw, the arrow-ribbed manakin, the mountain tapir, the puma, the venacious-breasted Amazon, the Bornean elephant, and countless other species. Crucial for the success of the Land Acquisition Fund are the locally rooted initiatives that secure threatened ecosystems and species. The resilience we see in ecosystems, given the right conditions, is astounding. Yet none of this would have been possible without the passionate people, those in the front line of conservation and those making the funding of their invaluable work possible. This offers hope for a world in which biodiversity is valued and conserved as a basis for all life. Let's keep joining forces to ensure the survival of species. Join our journey around the world and be inspired by the amazing projects of our partners.
Wow, that was an amazing video. And now it is my great honor to introduce Stuart Pym, Doris Duke Professor of Conservation, President of Saving Nature, and member of the International Review Committee of the Land Acquisition Fund. So, Stuart, you've been working on nature conservation for so many years now. Where does your passion for conservation come from?
I was hugely fortunate to have parents who took me into nature from when I was tiny. I became an enthusiastic bird watcher just when I was in my teens. But I think an amazing event for me was in my 20s. I went to Hawaii to do field work and realized that species were going extinct there at an appalling rate. And so since that event, I've been dedicating my science and my passion to trying to prevent species from going extinct.
Wow, that is amazing, Stuart, and great to hear that you are also a bird watcher. And you actually received the Heineken Prize for Environmental Sciences in 2006 from our current king, Willem-Alexander. And with the grant that came with that, you actually funded your own NGO that support land acquisition. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about that?
I was enormously honored to win one of the leading international prizes for environmental sciences from the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences. Yes, I was awarded it by King Willem-Alexander. That was a great honor. You know, one of the conditions of that prize was that, you know, they expected me to go on and continue to do things into the future. And so I used that money to found the organization that is now Saving Nature. As we heard, I am committed, as you are, to helping local conservation groups. And so Saving Nature works to empower local groups, to allow them to buy land, connect land. And of course, we've worked extensively with IUCN, the Netherlands, over the dozen years since we've been in existence.
Thank you, Stuart. And you have a few words inspiring words to say to us all. And well, I can hereby tell you that the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. You know, when Al Gore, the former American vice president, talks about species going extinct 1,000 times faster than they should, he's getting that information from my scientific papers. So people, journalists in particular, often ask me, you know, how do I get up in the morning? You know, how do I, you know, go through the day knowing that there are so many things going wrong with the world? Well, the reality is that I know that there are many things we can do to slow down that rate of species extinction. I think the first one is to do what we call strategic mapping, to map out where the concentrations of threatened species are. They're mostly in the tropics, not all, but places like the northern Andes, coastal Brazil, Madagascar, various places in Africa and Southeast Asia, you're going to hear from most of those places today. And it's not an accident. The threatened species in the world are concentrated in about 15% of the land use surface. So that tells us broadly where we need to act. It doesn't need necessarily tell us specifically where to act. And for that, we use a whole variety of detailed satellite image analyses, drone flights, to identify the key properties where we need to work. We have not only destroyed so much of the world's biologically rich areas, what we have left behind is in tatters, in pieces. And so what we need to do is to restore connectivity, to restore forests, to stitch nature back together again. And it's helping local conservation groups, something that SPN, the Netherlands, does so incredibly well, that is key. It means working with local communities. It means empowering local communities. It means getting to know what their problems are, how they can live in a sustainable way. And that, I think, is the key. And so when I get up in the morning, I am enormously encouraged by all the things that we can do, what I can do, what you can do, what we can do together, and what people around the world can do. And I'm thrilled to be a part of the committee that supports these projects, proud to be working with all you chaps, because I know you're doing such a spectacular job. Over to you.
Thank you so much for these enlightening and inspiring words, Stuart. Thank you for that. So now our journey begins. We will travel through rainy Amsterdam, and we will cross the Atlantic, and we head to Colombia, where Rosa Mia Guillen from Proyecto Titi will tell us all about her groundbreaking conservation work on the critically endangered cotton-top tamarin. How did you fall in love with that amazing and enigmatic little monkey called the cotton-top tamarin?
Yes, Arjan, I fell in love with cotton tops the first time I saw them on my first job as a landscape architect in my hometown zoo in Barranquilla, here in Colombia. I had never heard of it growing up in this town. And when I saw them and learned that they were only found here in Colombia, just fell in love with it and was compelled to do something about it. And that's how it all started more than 20 years ago.
Or you actually started working with this amazing animal, and well, the floor is yours. Please tell us about your amazing project.
Yes, thank you, Arjan. Yes, we work to protect this 1 pound little monkey that is very special because it's only found in a very little corner of the Colombian Caribbean region. There you see it, and it looks big, but it's only 1 pound, about the size of a squirrel. And I ended up becoming the director of that zoo in my hometown, and decided to make cotton tops the key and the flagship of our conservation efforts. And that's how I met Dr. Ann Savage and the team of Proyecto DT when I went to see that amazing tropical dry forest where they live, which was all, actually in our backyard. So the first time when I went to the forest, I met this beautiful female cotton top tamarin that was called Tamara. And there you see it. Those beautiful eyes really captivated me in learning about her and her family. She's actually quite a special cotton top because we studied her for over 17 years from birth to death. And it was amazing because she taught us a lot of what we know about cotton top tamarins, and we have used that to promote their conservation. So that day that I visited the forest, I was also able to evidence the threats cotton top tamarins are facing. It is all about deforestation. Their forest home is going away due to cattle ranching and agriculture. And it's not only deforestation, but also fragmentation. Cutting down strips of forest that isolate forest fragments. It's a huge problem for species like cotton tops. They usually hang out up in the trees because if they come down, never come down to the ground because they become vulnerable for their predators, raptor birds or boa snakes or small mammals. So they never come down to the ground. And if they get isolated on these islands, their future is actually at risk because they cannot move around to find resources, food, territory, or even their genetic viability in the long term is really affected. So that beyond deforestation, there's also the issue of the illegal pet trade. Cotton tops are beautiful little monkey, that it's only people wanna. It's very charismatic, so people are compelled to hunt it and sell it for the pet trade as a way to generate an income in local communities. And that is why cottontails are now considered a critically endangered species. So that is one step away from being extinct in the wild. You know, we estimate there's about 7,000 cottontails left, but the harsh number is the amount of habitat that is still viable for them. It's only 2%. And that is represented in small little fragments that are together in clusters in the areas where we still have forest in northern Colombia. So that is why we were compelled to do something about it. And we at Proyecto TT work on reducing those threats in deforestation and the pet trade. And even though we have been studying cottontails for more than 30 years, and we know a lot about them, we know and we learn that science is not enough to save a species. So we have put together this conservation integrated model that involves local communities. And so we work with them in many different programs, like these beautiful plush toys that are made by artisans in the local communities. Some of them make beautiful handbags with recycled plastic bags, and some of them make fence posts with recycled plastic bottles. All of these ideas come together to give them an alternative income. They don't have to cut trees and hunt animals for the pet trade. And then we also work with the youngers in the community. And with them, we work on making it fun to connect with cottontails, making it fun to learn about them. And we do this through culture, arts, dance, music. We Colombians are very festive. We love to celebrate. So through that and through visits to the forest and to playing around cottontails, we connect these little kids with our own biodiversity, with our own nature, and make them proud of what we have, but also make them responsible to care for it. But the real critical part of it is the forest. There's no habitat, there's no cottontails. So we were fortunate enough to receive a grant from the Land Acquisition Fund, and we will be eternally grateful to the Land Acquisition Fund for giving us this opportunity to purchase a 70-hectare plot of land that is neighbor to a national park where cottontails live. We purchased this property about 5 years ago, and I'm thankful for the patience because it was a long and hard process to get this going. But Land Acquisition Fund trusted us and waited for us till we finally were able to make this dream come true. It was actually a dream come true for us. And now, 5 years after, we started with that 70-hectare property, and now we've been able to expand that property to 260 hectares that are expanding the area that cottontails need to survive, and also connecting the national park to other forested areas where cottontails can now go through. So what started with the 70-hectare now is a bigger project that we expect it continues to grow. And the important thing is that this opportunity the Land Acquisition Fund gave us give us the opportunity to be another partner, to be part of the community, to be owners of land in an area where there's a lot of farmers working with us now, and they have become our partners in creating these highways of forest and forest corridors that can provide cottontails and wildlife with opportunities to move around safely and to use sustainable practices. We plant a lot of trees in these corridors and make sure that these trees are good for cottontails and they provide a safe opportunity for them to move around and survive in the long term. So we are very proud and happy to be able to be partners of the Land Acquisition Fund and all the benefits that is creating for us. So we hope to continue growing and continue working to make this successful, because the forest we save for cottontail tamarins, we also save for a lot of other animals that live and share a home for cottontails, and not only for the animals, also for the people. We know the forest helps us save water, helps us save resources that are very important for us humans. So we care for them, and if we use it wisely and sustainably, we can certainly find that balance we're all looking for between the needs of nature and wildlife and the needs of human communities. And I want to acknowledge our team here in Colombia, the team that every day researches the cottontails in the wild, helps us restore and protect the forest, educates the new generations of Colombians, and work with communities to reduce the impact and to secure a long-term future for the cutest monkey in the world, the cotton-top tamarins. Thank you.
Wow, Rosa Mira. What an amazing story, what an inspirational story. So if I can ask you just one brief question. So what exactly was the tipping point? How did you get the local communities to actually fall in love with your fantastic program? What was the moment they realized this is the way forward?
I think we love when we interact with communities and we tell them that cotton tops are only found in this very little corner of the world. That we always get, big eyes like, what? Really? And that changes the whole perception of a species, because you start creating this sense of ownership, this sense of pride, that this is only yours, that this is only for us Colombians and for us in the Caribbean region. And that brings a sense of responsibility as well. But I think the most important thing is that we make conservation relevant for people. The farmers help us because they get benefits as well. And that forest they save for the monkeys, they also save and restore for saving water through the dry season. That is important to them. So when you see the benefit and you see that participating in these initiatives also brings benefits to you, and it also helps protect wildlife, then it's a different story. So I think that is the tipping point where people feel that it has been economic benefits, welfare for them, and plus they're helping protect a very unique species that it's only found in our country.
Wow, that's a great answer. Very inspirational. Can I have a warm digital applause for Rosa Mira? And then now, without further ado, we will travel to the Atlantic rainforest of Brazil, where Nicholas Locke will tell us all about successfully reintroducing tapirs in the jaguar reserve. Wow. Welcome, Nicholas. Can you tell us maybe briefly before you start your story, when did you fall in love with the Atlantic rainforest, and when did you realize how special it actually was?
Hello, everybody. I think that you fall in love when you're born in Europe. You read about these magical stories of travelers and this exciting, mysterious land of the tropics. And somehow I came back to a family farm here in Brazil. And when I saw this forest for the very first time, it was instantly, I could instantly capture all the essence of what those travelers had seen, their excitement, their love for this fantastic forest type, the tropical forest or the neotropical forest here near Rio de Janeiro. I think that was it.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give you the floor to tell us all about your amazing project. I'm really looking forward. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ariel. Hi everyone. Firstly, a very big thank you to iucn.nl Land Acquisition Fund for allowing me to present REGWA to you all. My name is Nicholas, and together with my wife, we manage the Guapiaçu Ecological Reserve, located just under 2 hours from the iconic city of Rio de Janeiro. This project started life in 2001 as a means to protect an environmental treasure, the forested mountains of the Atlantic rainforest, a biodiversity hotspot close to the Amazon forest, yet historically reduced to just 8 or 10% of its original habitat. Having an inherited part of the family estate, my father had always wanted to secure the forest, and I, trained as a farmer, couldn't really find any economic solution for it. Our interests collided when a mutual birding friend from the UK suggested creating a private reserve, a very new idea back in the 90s. With help from institutions there, we developed a management plan and founded an NGO here in Brazil. We called it Reserva Ecológica de Guapiaçu, or REGWA for short, and proposed it should be responsible for the future of the forest here. We were very fortunate to gain international visibility when one of the rarest birds in the world was spotted at REGWA, the Rio de Janeiro ant wren, known from one specimen caught by Professor Luis Gonzaga a professor in ornithology at Rio University. A few years later, we learned that the mountains here have the largest population of the endemic southern muriqui, the Brachyteles arachnoides. These precious animals have been very rarely sighted, and in the 1980s, the species was quoted in the Guinness Book of Records as being the most threatened primate on the planet. We soon realized that conservation was a discipline, a broad concept that required an umbrella framework underpinned by 5 essential programs: protection of what habitat is left through a team of rangers, awareness building to secure the support of local community, research to know how the ecology works, restoration to learn how to repair the damage done over time and by planting trees and more trees, and finally raising funds through visitation, grants and project work. Research was to understand what the reserve had in terms of biodiversity and what we were trying to protect. Imagine our reactions when the first camera trap caught that puma you just saw in 2004. It made national headlines as few people had ever seen this cat before. And since then, we've identified another 6 adults, all individually marked, as well as many other mammals. As I was saying, our institutional mission is the conservation of the Guapiaçu watershed and community engagement. You have to remember, we live in a rural community, and many local people had never been to see the ocean. After 2 decades of community outreach through visitation, we believe we have created a positive effect and are attracting national attention in a way we hadn't thought possible back in 2000. And what was it? This slide shows that water security and the association of forest and water and streams and rivers that provide drinking water to 3 million people downstream from Rega was the answer. 3 million people depend on the water of the Guapiaçu catchment. And we'd like to stress that the simple message that forests produce water. As a result, Rega has planted 600,000 trees to offer the biodiversity in these forests the best possible protection. By planting more, we can offer the forests greater importance in their role as water providers, a concept increasingly respected by a local community. With the visits of birders from around the world, we see that species here in the university, by university researchers, we soon built up a staggering list of fauna and the flora present here. Can you imagine a reserve with 40 species of bats, 204 species of dragonfly, 600 species of butterfly, 480 species of birds? The lists are huge, 72 species of amphibians, and just 12 genera of praying mantis. The lists indicate that the Guapiaçu catchment is very well preserved, and efforts have been worthwhile. With the results in land purchase, we have created private park, or in Brazil we call this RPPN. And with the planting of so many trees and securing land, with a team of rangers, Rega was chosen as a gateway for the release of the lowland tapir, led by university professors Fernandez and Galliez. And these are where they can reach the high altitude forest near to Rega Reserve. The project has provided much international promotion and was featured in national newspapers and even The Guardian after the birth of a baby tapir in January this year, the first in Rio State for 60 years since they went extinct. The Rega Reserve is growing, and today we administrate roughly 30% of a watershed that is 450 square kilometers. We have seen that land purchase and reforestation or restoration are the best ways forward to provide long-term protection for the Atlantic rainforest. The iucn.nl Land Acquisition Fund provided Rega with the very first fund when we looked at landscape conservation on a landscape scale. And in 2009, this area of grassland, threatened by developers and the inevitable increasing housing pressure, which is endless in this part of the world, we secured a grant from SOS Mata Atlântica to plant the area with trees, impeding that development and that advance of housing. And today, it's protected. This is just an example of what we do. It shows that we can change things if we want. We're all in this together, a common cause to look after our planet. And this project is just one of the many that fill us with hope. Thank you very much, Ariel, for listening, and thank you all your internet followers for following this presentation.
Wow, That was absolutely amazing, Nicholas. You actually, with this story, restored my hope in a sustainable future. And I have two questions for you. The first, of course, when can I come visit and look for that Rio de Janeiro NGOs? Hopefully as soon as possible. And then, of course, I have a more serious... sorry?
You have to come. You have to come and visit us, Ariel. I mean, the birds here are just amazing.
And then I have a more serious question as well. So you, of course, successfully reintroduced the Brazilian tapir. So how did you convince the local communities that that introducing such a large mammal was needed to for this landscape, for this ecosystem? How did you convince them of the importance of that?
This is quite this came as a consequence of all our work, as I mentioned, that after so many years of just diligent, perseverant work and through our programs of establishing a very large reserve, the tapir became a sort of what was missing here, and we knew that it had become extinct. We think that the project offered the lowlands possible for it to start its new life. These animals come from conservation breeders, and so the project here offered, the RPPN offered a chance for it to start and then find its way into the forests around us. We see the tapir as a tool, as a sort of iconic tool. It was missing, it was extinct in the state of Rio de Janeiro since 1950s. We see this as a tool with which to structure one's project to gain visibility, and convincing university professors who lead this wasn't hard, and it really sort of becomes a sort of like an umbrella for the rest of all the projects. So it's a bit like an iceberg, and that we see the tapir, but underneath the tapir comes all our programs which support it.
Well, thank you very much. And again, thanks for this amazing and inspirational story. So now we will travel to Madagascar, where hopefully, if the internet connection works, Jani Raharim-Ampionona will tell us all about an amazing project with a local community over there. Hi, Jani. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes, we have a connection with Madagascar. So, Jani, what makes Madagascar such a unique place for biodiversity? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course, Madagascar is a hot spot in the world. And we have a very high unique flora. About 87% of our flora is endemic. That means only found in Madagascar. About 100% of our lemurs, that means 101 species of lemurs are endemic to Madagascar. That's really a very, very exceptional number for the world. And we can say about our reptiles, the bird, we have 3 endemic family birds only found in Madagascar.
Wow, that is amazing, and hopefully I can come visit soon to look for those endemic families. Well, Jani, the floor is yours. Please tell us all about your fantastic project.
So, I started with MBG in 1994 as botanist. We, MBG, start in Madagascar for almost 4 decades. And our mission is to discover the poorly known Malagasy flora. But since 2003, we invested in the community-based conservation for priority areas for plant conservation. And I am now the coordinator of the MBG Conservation Unit. We managed actually 12 priority areas for plant conservation, and all of them, They are all designed as new protected area officially, with about 60,000 hectares. I am really happy to tell you today about our project, to share your experience with an innovative land exchange trail in the southeast of Madagascar. And we make the title like From Conflicts to Harmony for Humans and Biodiversity. The project started in 2014 and it was supposed to be 1 year project. But with several extensions, it continues until 2019. Where is the project, the location? It is in the southeast of Madagascar. It's one of the 80 priority areas for plant conservation that we have identified. And I was among the person who did this study in Madagascar with the MBG. And it's one of the 12 new protected areas created officially in 2015 and managed with the community. Why ANKARABOLAVA-AGNAKATRIKA forest is important? It's a humid tropical forest on a very rare basalt substrate, home of very diverse fauna and flora, including threatened and endemic, locally endemic plants, locally endemic animals. You can see in the photo of the lemur, and the name is Lemur cinereseps. It's locally endemic and critically endangered. The name of the plant, also locally endemic from this area, is Polycias lancifolia. So this forest is really very important for biodiversity, but also for the community. So it's source of water to irrigate the rice field. Malagasy is really famous, and our main dish is rice. So we really need to plant rice in these rice fields. The forest is source of timber and source of wood for traditional houses. This is also the last part of forest within the district, and it has a cultural importance for the communities because it can remain the only contact for this community to their natural heritage. This forest is also used as a cemetery for the Antesaka ethnic from this region. But this forest is really threatened by overexploitation of timber and shifting cultivation. Ever increased threats is related to the growing needs of humankind for food, fresh water, fiber, fuel, and in this region, the human population growth rate is 3% per year. Why action was required at this forest? So, prior to the designation of this forest as new protected area, there are 65 cultivating plots within the forest, and it resembled a Swiss cheese. Farmers have a traditional occupancy right to their land, but cannot extend their plot after the legal designation for protected areas. So the farmers were unable to practice the traditional shifting cultivation, and their land become exhausted. They are forced to do illegal expansion, so hence the conflict. What we did as a manager of a new protected area is the creation of a win-win outcome. So we conducted a series of meetings with the forest occupants to identify solutions. And the communities requested land exchange. And we are lucky. We were able to accommodate this request through the land acquisition fund the only funder accepting the land purchase for the protected area. So, what are the process? First, MBG asked help from independent cabinet to evaluate the plot within the forest. Then, we informed the farmer of the value of their plots and offer them the opportunity to receive the money and to purchase alternative land outside the forest while abandoning their plot within the forest. If they accept the offer, so then we enable the farmer to obtain legal document for the purchased land. And the exchange is entirely voluntary. As a result, wow, there is a new life start for the farmer outside of a protected area. 125 hectares of the agricultural plots outside of the forest were acquired by the farmers. All of this land with official documents. It's really very difficult to do it in Madagascar, but we met the challenge and we got the document. They were able to plant cash crops, to build new houses, and send their kids back to school again. Another great result is also new life gained for the biodiversity inside the protected areas, such as 85 hectares of the land gained for the protected area and officially returned to the national system of the protected area, with huge impact on the improving the integrity of the forest. Some of the abandoned land has a very good natural regeneration, but all of these exhausted plots, ecological restoration is required. And now, recently, a project underway with the support of a fund from new donors. I think that these two results are really a great result for this project. Over to you.
Thank you, Janie. What an amazing story, and it's so great that you managed to get the community involved and get them excited about the project. So, if I can ask one question, relocation is such a sensitive topic in conservation. Maybe can you share some of the experience of the local people with us?
Yes, in the beginning, all of these farmers, they are reticent, but trust become along the project. We need to be transparent with these people and the local farmers. Once we got the trust, they become our partner and themselves now, actually, they are really active and passionate, help us to protect the forest. They are participants on the activities on the conservation of the forest.
Wow, that's a very enlightening answer, and thanks for this inspirational story. I really hope to come visit somewhere in the future to look for some ground rollers with you. Okay, thank you, Janie. And we will now travel to the Kurdistan region of northern Iraq, where Hannah Raza will tell us all about the amazing conservation work on the Persian leopard. Hi, Hannah.
Hello, Ariane.
Hello. Can you maybe tell us, share with us how you fell in love with this amazing and highly elusive big cat?
Yeah, of course. So it was 2009 when we received a footage of a Persian leopard that was dead as a result of a landmine that exploded and killed the leopard. And in the footage, the leopard has lost one limb, and the locals are all standing around this leopard and just wondering about, you know, how this landmine killed this beast. And we didn't even know that we had such an animal in our area. So after that, the other footages were circulated of leopards being killed all over the region. So I was wondering, like, why do we have to have films and footages of killed leopards? Why can't we find live animals? And that actually inspired me to always have in mind to search for the leopard. And luckily in 2011 we received camera trap donations, and we were able to set those cameras and find the first live image of the Persian leopard, and that, you know, inspired me even more to continue working in trying to protect them.
Amazing. That's a very, very nice answer, and well, I'm convinced you will succeed in this work. And well, you probably want to tell us a lot more about this amazing project. So I would now like to give you the floor and enjoy.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Ariane, and thank you, IUCN Netherlands Land Acquisition Fund, for the opportunity. I'm not famous like Dr. Stewart, so I'll tell you a bit about myself. I have been working in the field of nature conservation for 11 years now with Nature Iraq organization, with the main focus on mammals, and more specifically on the protection of the Persian leopard and lobbying for protected area establishment in Kurdistan region. I'm project manager of the Qaradagh Nature Reserve project that was funded by the Land Acquisition Fund. So the Qaradagh Nature Reserve is located in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, occupying approximately 22 square kilometers. It's situated in one of the world's most critically endangered ecoregions, the Zagros Mountain forest steppe ecoregion. It is an area of spectacular scenic natural beauty. I find deep peacefulness when standing and spending time on these mountains. There's something about the flow of water from the springs and the vast expanse of the wilderness that makes it, you know, makes me feel vulnerable and protected at the same time. I literally feel on top of the world. But I also often get mad and frustrated that this highly diverse and environmentally fragile landscape is neglected, while it provides essential habitat for the Persian leopard and for large numbers of endangered species that are under pressure from both environmental changes and human activities. The International Union for Conservation of Nature lists the Persian leopard as endangered, estimating that the global population is less than 1,300 adults remain. It can be found in Iran, Turkmenistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, Turkey, and the Caucasus. After 4 decades of war in Iraq, the leopard was thought to have followed the Asiatic lion and cheetah into local extinction, until 9 years ago, when our team was able to record the first evidence of the leopard in Iraq. Discovering the leopard was such an exciting and rare event, and a dream come true, because this meant that the leopard, this beast, will now make a stronger case for nature conservation in Iraq, which has been neglected for so many years. The animal's elusive nature is a big part of what has helped it hold on here in Iraq, but that hold is tenuous, as throughout this range, the Persian leopard's primary threat is people who degrade the cat's habitat, deplete water resources, and poach the prey source. Since that first camera trap image, we'll be laying the groundwork for the leopard's conservation, first documenting their habitat, then writing proposals and advocating for the designation and management of reserves. The big question was how, and who could fund this? Well, in Iraq, biodiversity has never seen the attention it deserves until Nature Iraq initiated its long-term plan for nature conservation in 2004, but it went downhill once again 7 years ago with the coming of the Islamic State, ISIS. Since then, Iraq went through a devastating economic and civil unrest, and Kurdistan region was also largely hit by it, leading a lot of companies to leave the region, businesses to shut down, and thousands of NGOs and not-for-profit organizations like Nature Iraq to suffer from lack of funding. What makes the matter worse is that a lot of time Iraq is seen as a land of war, and not many international organizations are interested in investing here. Donors are mostly interested in funding humanitarian rehabilitation, and once again, biodiversity conservation is not seen as a priority. So it was very hard to find funds. But then I came across the Land Acquisition Fund, which thankfully came during a time that biodiversity in Iraq needed attention the most. The Land Acquisition Fund provides funding to NGOs to buy or lease land and declare it as reserves, but both these were not possible in our case because Qaradagh area's land was not up for sale or for lease. So we had to come up with an idea to get the land without these two scenarios. Therefore, we signed an agreement with the Kurdistan region government, and the Qaradagh Nature Reserve was born, managed by Nature Iraq and the Kurdistan region's Environment Board through a memorandum of understanding. The duration of the agreement is 3 years with a possibility of renewal every 3 years, with conditions that both parties work jointly to protect and improve biodiversity in the area through developing and implementing a robust management plan, which will protect and promote the nature reserve and its components. For that purpose, an ecolodge was built to promote ecotourism in the area. And a ranger station was built to control illegal hunting and to allow the biodiversity to thrive. Meeting these conditions was what the land acquisition supported. The Land Acquisition Fund and the broad scope of the Qaradagh Land Acquisition Project was to provide Qaradagh with a tangible plan for the protection of the Persian leopard while ensuring a sustainable development of the territory and increasing the value of its unique features so that they can be enjoyed by present and future generations. Local stakeholders who are the best protectors of these areas are included in the decision-making process to provide them with an alternative income that's directly related to the protection of ecological assets, and we're positive that this will encourage ecotourism, which would make the locals the best protectors of this asset. Qaradagh holds yet another draw due to its high potential for recreational activities and sustainable low impact and local income generation through tourism. Year-round, there are abundant recreational activities available, including sightseeing, trekking, rock climbing, biking, and bird watching. The main objectives are to provide opportunities for ecotourism linked to leisure time, healthy living, and education. Qaradagh contains important archaeological sites, providing outstanding attractions and facilities suitable to attract international tourism. Nature Iraq will be using the Sustainable ECOLODGE that was built through the Land Acquisition Fund to initiate general knowledge among the locals about the environment, conservation, and the importance of the nature reserve and its components, with particular attention focused on the wildlife value, history, and local traditions, by conducting study tours and overnight stays and creating educational material featuring the participation of the academic scientists and conservationists. Our most recent achievement for nature conservation in Iraq and in Kurdistan is a collaboration with the Future for Leopards Foundation from Iran, funded by the Future for Nature Foundation to estimate the Persian leopard population in the Qaradagh and advocate for its further protection within the nature reserve and the region. Ultimately, I envision a peace park in the Kurdistan region that straddles Iraq and Iran, of which the Qaradagh Nature Reserve is a vital part. The dream of the Peace Park is to reestablish and maintain these important ecosystems that surpass man-made borders, preserving and reviving natural and cultural heritage that's essential for the people and the future generations living in these border areas. Over to you, Arjan.
Well, thank you so much, and you're a true inspiration. I was wondering, as a young woman, you must have experienced some challenges in this man-dominated conservation scene and these rugged mountains in Kurdistan. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, when I started as a wildlife conservationist 11 years ago, things were very different from now. I was a 22-year-old girl who had a questionnaire in my hand and asked villagers around, checkpoint police, border patrol police, farmers, hunters, shepherds, and most, if not all of them, were men. Because only men take these positions in our region, and in the rural areas, women still feel that they should let the men answer for them, or just because men were mostly present outside at that time of our survey. And, you know, shepherds are almost always men. Again, hunters are almost men. So in these surveys, I was the only female with a number of my male colleagues, but I was the one asking the questions. But the interviewee almost, never looked at me to answer my questions. They faced my male friends and answered my questions to them. And, this prepared me to never stay in my comfort zone, to, maintain self-confidence, and unfortunately still had to look tomboyish to gain the respect I deserved. One time during a hot midsummer day, we had to climb a 2,600 meter high peak to survey wild goats. Our plan was to camp near the peak for 5 nights, so you would imagine the weight of our backpacks. The guide who was with us when we were preparing to summit, he saw my backpack and told the guys, not myself, that this girl's bag is too heavy, she can't carry it. And I answered him and said, well, just watch me. So the entire 13-hour hiking trip during that hot summer day, I was walking behind this guide, making sure that I proved to him that I am capable of, being part of a team of all males, and also I carried my back all the way to the peak. So you can have an idea of, what women have to go through to prove that, they can do whatever it takes to accomplish what they want.
Well, that is inspirational, Hannah. And you're not just a conservation hero, but you're also a badass. So it's amazing to hear these stories, and I admire you a lot. So now, finally, we will travel to India, where a true conservation icon, Vivek Menon, is successfully constructing corridors for Asian elephants. So, Vivek, can you maybe describe for us the feeling, your emotions when you first laid eyes on a wild Asian elephant?
Goedenavond, Arjan, and everybody watching this in Netherlands or all over the world. What were my first feelings when I saw an elephant? I can't tell you that. I probably was 4 or 5 years old. I grew up in an area with elephants at that stage, which is southern India, which is Kerala, which is what I'm going to talk about. And I was very, very small when I saw my first elephant. But when I was old enough to realize that this is the largest animal in the world, it is a magnificent thought and feeling, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, I can truly imagine as I saw the Asian elephant with my own eyes in your beautiful country. And well, I was hoping you could tell us more about this in the coming minutes. So the floor is yours, Vivek.
Thank you, dank u wel. I want to talk a bit about the elephant, but also about India. So we had run this project now for the last 20 years on safe passage, safe habitation for elephants and for people in India. But you must understand that this whole project is not just about elephants. So if you see the next video clip that comes along, you will see that this corridor that I'm going to talk about is also populated by India's national animal, the tiger. Now, remember that India, 1.2 billion people, one of the most dense human habitations in the world, also has 65% of its tigers, 80 to 85% of the rhinos, the Asian rhinos, and another 65 to 70% of the elephant in India. So these are 3 large creatures, and I didn't just choose 3 animals per se. These are animals that compete with human beings for space. These are animals that actually kill more than 400 to 500 human beings a year in India. And these are the animals that we are trying to conserve and give space for. So this is a peculiar situation with a lot of people and a lot of wildlife packed into one relatively large country. Next, please. And you will see that when we talk of elephants, we chose elephants because elephants has got such a strong connect with the Indian people. like from Kerala, where I am from, but also all over India, elephants for the Hindu, who's over 80% of this country, is worshipped as God. And even for those who are not, it's worshipped as a cultural symbol that goes back at least 4,000 years. At least 4,000 years. So we have our first sanctuaries in India written about 2,500 years in actual texts and in stone inscriptions where sanctuaries were created. It was not Yellowstone, which was the first national park of the world. It were sanctuaries in India created for the elephant. Now, we are trying to recreate some of these by connecting them together. Okay, so 15 years ago, we went to a very important part of southern India next year, in which we had a lot of mortality of people, about 30 cases a year because of elephants, and more than 70 cases of human injury. And there were plenty of cases of damage to property and household and crops. So there was a problem of elephant and human wildlife conflict. At the same time, if you go to the next, you will see that this was a critical area that connected more than 6,000 elephants in the Western Ghats, one of the world biodiversity hotspots. It also connected hundreds of tigers, large animals including leopards, bison, which is Indian gaur, sambar, the largest deer in India, and many, many other animals. But we chose the elephant as a flagship for this project that looked at a chicken neck, a very narrow neck that you can see. Next, please. And in which there were people who were living. And we chose just 37 families. And many people would ask, why such a small number? Because these are the people who were directly in the path of the elephant. And the elephant is a large nomad. When you ask a child what an elephant is, it's a big social nomad. 4 words, you can know an elephant, right? Because it's big, it needs space, it needs to move, but it also can kill you if you are in its path. So we decided we'd move out just these 37 families and take over not too much land, very, very little land, 20 odd acres, but which connects for 6,000 elephants, more than 5,000 square kilometers. So very, very critical passage, which we wanted to take voluntarily with the people knowing it's better for them. Next, please. And you will see that this process took us nearly 10 years. It's not easy in India. It's not that you just go and buy land. You needed to talk to people and convince them that they can leave the place where they have lived hundreds of years. Next, please. And in doing so, we voluntarily relocated one after another after consent was there. And once people found the right land which they really wanted, we relocated these 4 villages of 37 families. Small number of people, but who were in such a critical area for wildlife, which connected 2 very, very important parts of the Western Ghats. Next, please. And as I told you, it really took us 10 years for the whole project, but it took 6 years to seek consent and offer the resettlement packages. It was at this stage that IUCN Netherlands came up with this wonderful project. And I think one of the most impressive projects in the world, because giving money to purchase land. In India, I often say that if I have to leave something for my 2 sons that I have, it has to be land, because there's nothing else which will gain value. And if there's something that I need to leave for elephants or tigers, it has to be land. And the IUCN Netherlands came with that first amount of real important help to show the world that even in a crowded country like India, land acquisition is possible. Next, please. And now we built these new and better houses for the villagers. Yeah, next. And these are not cookie cutter houses. I remember going into one of those houses 10 years ago, and the man said, 4 daughters, and they'll marry and they'll live with me. I need 4-bedroomed house. So we built him a 4-bedroomed house. I don't have one myself, but we built him so that they're happy, so that their future is a better future. And we connected them to several government benefits, including proximity to roads, hospitals, health services, education. And we started monitoring them not only on livelihood, on money that they earn, but also on health, on education, on so many other parameters, 13 different social parameters. And despite being a wildlife organization, we spend most of our time monitoring human beings. At the same time, we also looked at elephant movement. Next, please. And the elephants returned. You'll see in this very, very short clip that not just elephants, but many animals, as these people are saying in the local language Malayalam, returned back to the areas. That tiger that you saw in the very first clip came to an area which had never, ever seen tiger pug marks ever before. It was there in the general area, but not in that corridor. And the moment people left, in the matter of a couple of years, you suddenly saw that the forest has returned. Nature is a great living beast. And despite the fact that villages were there for so long, tigers returned, elephants returned. And next, please, you will see that whether it is a spotted deer or the gaur, what is sometimes called the Indian bison, or the tiger, they all came back, and we frequently get camera trap images in the corridor. Next, please. The brilliant thing is that this then became part of the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, and therefore we handed over this land. It's such a small piece of land, but it's such a critical area. There was no point in managing it separately ourselves like we do in other places. But in this place, we handed it over back to the government. And here is a win-win for both elephants and people. On the left, you see a majestic elephant using that land. On the right, you see the oldest lady who lived alone in one house in the corridor, who moved out to a village and lived out the rest of her life very happily. And we have been monitoring this, and people's livelihood has increased 4 times. The elephants and as I said, many other animals are using the corridor. So an absolute win-win in a critical area which has so much biodiversity in a crowded country. I want to really thank IUCN Netherlands, Willem Verweera, who was then the head, Makosla particularly, and also Conrad, who's the new head, for having supported this project and brought it to life. Thank you very much, and it's great to participate in this global meet.
Well, Vivek, it is, there was an inspirational story, and it's great to have you telling us all these amazing facts about such an effective methodology, and how you managed to create this amazing corridor, because that is really something where the land acquisition fund is most effective. So I think immediately the first question of the panel discussion will be directed at you, but it's an important question for all our speakers tonight. Because some critics might say that securing a relatively small area of land, like we do with the Land Acquisition Fund, is just a drop in the ocean. How would you respond to that?
I would respond to it by saying that it is a critical drop in the ocean. As you have seen, in a part of the world where 1/3 of the world's population is crammed in, and most people are poor as well, in a global sense, it is very, very difficult to put aside land. It is easy to do small interventions which people like removing snares or catching poachers or whatever, but these are temporary. And having seen conservation closely for 35 years, I can tell you that unless that critical land is put aside, that will never work in the long sense. And if you can identify that critical area, you have seen that 25 acres is actually now securing connectivity between 5,000 square kilometers. And so many animals, elephants, tigers, and other things are depending on that. So it is a question of identifying that critical piece of land and securing it forever, which is so important in parts like Asia. So I think it's a critical investment.
Thank you, that is very enlightening. Thank you, Vivek. I think for the next question, we will go to Colombia, to Rosamira, if she is still there. Are you still there, Rosamira?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, you spent much effort on knowledge exchange between partners, but also between the young and the elder. We know there are a lot of students watching, so what will be your advice to the next generation?
Yes, Arjan, I would tell the younger generation in the world not to get discouraged thinking that your actions don't matter. They do matter, because if you add them all together, then you can make a huge difference. And it all starts with your own decision to make a difference, to change some habits that are not good for the environment, to care for wildlife and wild species and wild places, and just learn, get interested, get motivated, and take action. That's the key part of it. Take action, do something, even if it's just one thing in your day-to-day life, in your home, in your school. Do something. It will make a difference. It will add to many other people around the world doing amazing things, just like you saw today, all around the planet. So I'll encourage you to do something about it.
Well, Rosamira, I think you have just encouraged everybody that is listening, and I think it will be a snowball effect, and everybody here tuning in will definitely start to make their own difference just after this presentation. And I would now like to switch to Brazil, to Nicholas, because in many cases, Nicholas, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Ah, great, yeah. In many cases, buying land is the easy part, but then comes a lifelong responsibility to manage it. What strategy do you have for generating funding for that management?
That's a very good question. I think it affects everybody. Everyone's looking for how do you manage to raise funds in order to pay for those core costs and those ongoing core costs. We have been very lucky that we are located around about just under 2 hours from Rio de Janeiro, and we are in a very high biodiversity area. As I said, we have about 480 birds that have been seen, and so now we're on the international circuit to see rare species, endemic species that are relatively easy to see at Regua. And people stay at the lodge. And today this contributes about 60% of the annual income for the project. But similarly, with the times of COVID have affected us. Tourism has virtually extinguished. Lots of companies have folded. It's been a very hard time for this industry. But very fortunate, we are planting trees. And so we have been receiving grants from various donors to be able to plant trees. People are now seeing that we need our landscape in equilibrium, and they're seeing this COVID scare. It's been a real pandemic, and having more areas in forest means having nature in equilibrium. And I think people are now associating not only, as I was saying, about water security, but also lots of viruses at bay in these forests, in large areas of forest. So today, when you think about core costs, I think we have to think forward. We have to plan things very closely, and we look at a variety of income streams. Of course, tourism still is at a very low level, but will increase, we hope. But tree planting, grants, individual donations. And we think the future will be in eco-service provision, so securing land and using this in terms of water provision. I think this will gradually creep in. And I can't help thinking that carbon storage is something which we look at. Climate runaway, we need to think about. We can certainly start planning how we can offer these forests as a means to store carbon and regulate climate.
Wow, that is an amazing answer. Thank you so much, Nicholas.
Pleasure.
And now I would like to move back to the mountains of Kurdistan, because Hannah, you work in a region that is often associated with conflict. How do these conflicts impact your work? We have a connection loss. Hannah, could you maybe...
Yes, sorry.
Yes,
Can you hear me
back.
now?
Yes. So how did these conflicts impact your work?
Yeah. Well, as a country of war, the outside world looks at Iraq as a fireball. It's a desert or a bare land. So the last thing to come to mind is biodiversity and nature conservation. So it has always been difficult to find sources of funding to support our nature conservation project. We have had to work hard to build the trust to help us receive funding in an already high competitive process. Iraq is often not found in the list of eligible countries for funding. While other humanitarian projects may receive billions of dollars, we have to go through rigorous application processes to receive a grant for our biodiversity conservation projects, often for less than €10,000, with conditions such as the funding should not go for personnel or stipend. And our staff at Nature Iraq is currently completely project-based. That means that the salaries come from the project that we receive and we write the proposals for. And if a project does not support salary, then the staff has to work on a volunteer base. And this is the current reality for the conservation work here in Iraq and Kurdistan.
Okay, thank you very much, Hannah. And then we have a final question for Janie. If you are still there, Janie, your work is focusing on plants rather than animals, but animals as well. But how does fundraising for plants relate to fundraising for animals?
Thank you. That's a really interesting question. Most of the funders, they love lemurs in Madagascar, so it's easy for people working on lemurs to raise funds rather than us working on plants, looking for money to save plants. But we are lucky that because we have new funds obtained from the IUCN species saver, that will enable us to reforest 20 hectares of the abandoned plot with the farmers inside the forest, and to be planted with 50,000 of seedlings of native species. So this support was provided with the objective of to improve the integrity of the critical endangered, the Cinereseps critically endangered species. So that is an example of how we join the two objectives of and saving the integrity of the habitat of animal by planting native species.
Wow, thank you, Janie. So we come to an end of our journey across the world, but we've only seen just a small selection of the many projects that the IUCN.nl Land Acquisition Fund support. And I would ask you all, this is a call for action, to go to our website, iucn.nl, look at our amazing 20th anniversary report, look at all those amazing projects that we support, and please, well, support us. Tell your friends and your family about us. And thank you all for tuning in. And finally, I would like to give the floor one more time to Koenraad Keizer. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjan.
Oh, watch out for the cable.
Thank you, Arjan, for taking us on such a wonderful story, a wonderful journey of hope. And to me, what I especially like about this is that we meet the people behind this incredible work that we are so proud of to support. As a director of IUCN Netherlands, each year I have the privilege to get and obtain one of these, which is the annual check with the contribution of the Dutch Postcode Lottery. And I'm delighted and I'm so happy that after all of these years, through this way, we have been showing a little bit of how it is spent. And from these stories of hope, to me, again, I take 3 lessons at the end of this celebration. The first, I would say, conservation works. It really works. If we want it, we can save biodiversity in the most difficult places on Earth, as you have seen. Second, nature and people can go together. It may be challenging, but yes, we can do it, and we have seen it. And third, if we all work together across borders, internationally, across continents, if we team up, if we unite, we can truly realize a wonderful, beautiful future in which nature is conserved and valued for all people. I thank you so much for joining us on this 20th anniversary celebration of the Land Acquisition Fund. And I just want to say, have a good evening to you, everybody in Europe and Africa. Have a wonderful day, everybody in Central America, South America, and the US. And good night to you in Asia. Bye-bye. Thank you.